Welcome to the first episode of My Turn with Divyesh Doshi. There was a series of guests that I wanted to call on as my first guest, but it had to be the woman because of whom I started this podcast. That is Lajja Sanghvi Shah. She is a mental health coach, a psychologist. She is an Access Bars practitioner. She has always helped in developing behavior, transforming lives. And it is this experience that I wanted to share with you guys. So, in today's episode, we talk about common mental health issues, introduction to therapy, what are the aspects of therapy. There are various different tools that we are talking about. So, please watch it till the end and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Dr. Lajja, how are you?
I'm doing fabulous and I'm so excited to be here today.
So, this is my first episode today. And what is the vibe that you want to set for today's episode like?
I think want to have a lot of fun, create awareness, and hopefully contribute to the lives of people who are willing to receive the contribution of this podcast.
Dr. Lajja, how did you get into this field of saving lives, helping lives?
So there's a story to it. When I was in college, I always thought I wanted to do management, and I started off doing my undergrad in management. Midway through, I liked it. It was fun, but it was not making me feel driven, motivated. So at some point, I started doing this KG teachers training in learning how to work with play schools. No idea what I was going to do still, just having fun, basically exploring different options. While I was doing this, I came across topics such as anger, sibling rivalry, jealousy in a child, the formative years, how they're so vulnerable. And I think that's what got me hooked. All right, I think there's no looking back since then. So it was a leap of faith. Like I said, counselors weren't really there. We had psychiatrists. A lot of people don't even know the difference even today between psychologists and psychiatrists.
Can you explain that?
Yes.
Even
Sure.
to be honest, even I don't know the difference.
So psychiatrists are your mainstream doctors. So they are doctors who've done their MBBS and they go on to specialize in the brain.
Okay.
Now the brain is like the hardware. It's an organ of the body and it does malfunction, right? Like if your stomach can have digestion issues, your brain can have chemical imbalance, right? So psychiatrists are doctors and their basic area of focus is to go to the psychopathology in a biological way.
Okay.
So what is the chemical imbalance? Structurally, what's wrong with the brain? And they treat it very medically. Okay, now psychology is a whole different gamut. What it looks at is the individual and the human experience behind it that's causing the malfunction. All right, so it's like the mind is like the software and the brain is the hardware. And the software and the hardware are interconnected. Okay, I actually do believe that the malfunction first happens in the level of the software. That's the human being has these particular experiences because of which the brain is malfunctioning. So anyways, that's when I realized that there's a dearth of it. It's a gray area because, people didn't even know what therapists are. There was so much stigma and taboo attached to going to a therapist.
So you spoke about the formative years where there are sibling rivalries, anger issues. Like I'm sure like later in the conversation, we'll break that down and go deeper into that. But before that, what are the common mental health issues that people are facing today? Like for me, if someone says mental health, it is basically depression or social media anxiety or the feeling that I'm not good enough, having self-doubt, like self-worth issues.
I think all of these, Divyesh, they come to me with all of these. Very common is anxiety, insecurity, feelings of out of control and constantly trying to control your external environment, which leads to a lot of stress. So anxiety is a big one in the clinic, and anxiety has many manifestations. Okay, like perfectionism, low confidence, panic attacks, insomnia, all of that comes under anxiety. Then depression, which is mood swings, feeling low, feeling demotivated, loss of interest, loss of joy. Another very common, thing that...
Sorry, I'll interrupt you here. But
Sure.
what is the reason behind this anxiety? Like many people are coming to you for anxiety, but in today's time, like what is it that is causing them this anxiety? Is it all going back to the childhood, or is it comparison and jealousy in today's time? What causes this anxiety for people?
So, Divyesh, when you look at mental health, it's never any one thing, okay, that's leading to a particular symptom. It's generally a multitude of factors. It's a bunch of things. So definitely childhood years are very important. I will keep reiterating that throughout the podcast today because it's super important to understand that's your foundation. So if you've gone through a tricky childhood where there's been a lot of helplessness, or say there's been a lot of dysfunction in the environment, if there's been bullying or being beaten up, that leads to weakening of the psyche. Second is the person's personality. We all also have this inborn temperament. It's part genetic, it's how you think, your personality, that also leads to anxiety, right? And of course, the world that we're living in, it's becoming a very fast-paced, instant gratification, a lot of perfectionism, so all of that also does contribute to anxiety.
But how does someone know that, okay, now this is the time to get cured for this? Because there are many people who feel that depression is sitting in a corner, crying and just feeling lonely, and that's when you approach the person.
That's not
but
true.
To be honest, like when I came to you, many of my friends also thought that, Divyesh, you are so happy, you are the happy-go-lucky person, and why are you seeking help? So that's the feeling that I get, that a person can be completely different in a surrounding.
Absolutely.
And mentally what is happening is so when is it that the person realizes that, okay, now I need to meet someone, I need to approach someone, I need to solve this issue?
So negative emotions are a very normal part of the human landscape, our emotional landscape. But when you feel like the intensity is becoming a bit more than what you can handle, and it's causing an impairment in your functioning, right? So it's healthy, we have healthy anxiety, which kind of motivates you and gets you going. So if I have an exam, I need to feel a little anxious, so I study and I prep for it. If I had no anxiety, I wouldn't really open my books, right? But the minute the intensity is crossing a particular, it's a subjective thing. When you feel like it's pulling you down, there's rumination, it's impacting any of your sleep, your appetite, your natural functioning, right? That's a good time also to seek help. If you feel you're getting obsessive, recurrent thoughts, or you're just not able to enjoy yourself.
So your therapy, I believe, can be broken down into 3 parts: the past, present, and the future.
Absolutely.
That's how I have made my notes. So for past, there is definitely the hypnotherapy that
yes.
There is definitely the hypnotherapy that deals with the healing aspects.
Yes.
Then for your present behavior, there is CBT. And for the future, and to create magic, one revelation when I came to you was access consciousness. Access bars, access consciousness. So I want to talk to you about each of these things. So which one do you want to start with?
Let's go with the past and then present and future.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So we are products of our past, okay? The human mind is insane. There are so many layers, and literally no memory is ever forgotten. All right? It's been scientifically proven that no memory is forgotten. And the way the mind stores it is memory plus feeling. So our early formative experiences are also stored in our subconscious mind.
Okay.
Okay. And the way I like to say it, it's like a pot. If you keep filling water, finally it will overflow. When you start feeling that overwhelm, when we spoke about when should I reach out to a therapist, it's actually because the pot is full and it's overflowing.
So are you trying to say, to give an example, like if a child is constantly seeing parents fight at home, or they are constantly getting pressured from their parents that he's not good enough, so that's like the ghada that is getting filled up.
Absolutely.
And that may result in a...
So that becomes a script that starts getting written in the subconscious mind, if we go with this example, as to not being worthy, not being good enough. All right? And what we believe is what we create. All right? So what happens is when you start working with the subconscious mind through hypnotherapy, you're actually going to the core of the present day symptoms. So the client could be in the 30s. Okay, but this would be a pattern that has generally had its origin in, say, a vulnerable time in the past. Okay, which is then locked up in a coping program. So when you're feeling not so human beings, what you must understand, Divyesh, we're extremely resilient, we are adaptable, and we want to survive all odds. We've survived world wars and Holocaust and droughts, COVID. We emerge, right? So we all have this survival mechanism. It's known as our defense mechanisms that ensure survival. But what happens is then all our energy is locked up in a survival program. Okay, it's what we've done at that moment to survive that painful experience. And the trauma is the pain you felt when you went through that experience, is not processed, or it's undigested. And that's what goes into the subconscious. Okay, and that's what's going to actually unknowingly keep affecting your life. So as a 30-year-old, you may recognize that, oh, I should not get affected by what people think of me. Or I am more than this, I'm more than my academics. But we say that inner child, or that part of you where the script started getting written, is very much alive in your space, and it's kind of taking over your personality. So when you do hypnotherapy, you're going back to the core and you're resolving that negative experience, and you're releasing the trauma associated with. So when you let go of your survival program, you have a lot more energy to thrive.
No, so when you're going back,
Yes.
when you say you're going back, so in hypno, is there something like a pendulum and you're going back? Because that's what like we've always seen in movies. So what do you mean by going back? Is it so easy to just go back?
So when you're going back, there is no pendulum. There is none of that. That's all stage hypnosis. It's created to create a very, dynamic and occult kind of an effect. That's not what really happens in therapy. So it's actually very scientific. When we're right now, we both are in a beta or an active, alert state of mind. When you're meditating or you're quietening your mind down, you go into alpha state.
Okay.
So in the alpha state, the brain wave is relaxed. It's slowing down and your awareness is higher. So the client is very much aware. They're not going into a deep trance where they're going to have total amnesia and not be aware of what they're talking. All right? You're using this heightened awareness to go back into experiences in your past. So you're lying down essentially. You're going into a state of deep relaxation, which is facilitated by your therapist. You're still very aware.
Like there's an injection or something?
No, nothing.
It's just the therapist talking.
There is no injection. There's no watch being stolen. There's no turning you into a donkey, monkey, none of that, okay? Your therapist is just guiding you into a state of relaxation. It's like meditation. It's very similar to that state. And when you're in this state, your awareness is high. So we use that awareness to go back to the origin of the problem. So actually, you are the lock, you're the key. All right, so your mind knows, even the therapist does not know.
You're the facilitator.
I just facilitate it. So for instance, if you're working with low confidence, I would just give, once you're sufficiently relaxed, I would give the command, go back to where this feeling of not good enough started for the very first time.
And the
client will get memories of the past. Now, those memories are within you. Your mind is the storehouse, right?
I'm sure when you just said this statement also, there are many viewers or listeners who thought of an incident, like even in their normal conscious mind in the beta phase. But when you go deep down, when you're sleeping, so that's when the actual problem will hit.
The problems, the memories come, you get these awarenesses which you may not get when you're awake. Because when we're awake, there's so much external stimuli. You're distracted and we're all very distracted.
Yeah, like for me, like one thing, like when I thought of it, that I may feel that my sister is loved more by my parents and it's my sister who's always got more. But this memory can be related to a very small incident back in the childhood when I asked for a chocolate and the chocolate was given to her.
Absolutely. And what we work with is, you have to understand that when we are young, we have immature coping mechanisms. The way a child works is very different. So when you're going through that trauma as an 8-year-old, which may not seem like a trauma to the adult you, but to the 8-year-old you, that chocolate meant a lot because it was symbolic of your parents' love, for instance. Okay, so you may cope with it in a very immature manner by, say, I'm never going to talk to my sister nicely. Okay, I'm just giving you
yes.
And then from there may start this pattern of passive-aggressive behavior where you just start behaving rudely with your sibling, and that may continue to your adult years.
And if this is not resolved, this can go till the end of your life.
Right. And like I said, the adult, you may get it, that it's not healthy to talk to my sibling like this, but we say there's an 8-year-old who is vulnerable, who's kind of taking over your personality at that moment. Okay. And instead of a 30-year-old mature adult, you're responding through the lens of an 8-year-old.
So Lajja, just to create more awareness, what are these different types of patterns, like how we spoke about self-confidence or this chocolate example? Could you give a few more examples so that the viewers can connect to a pattern that has been formed, or just how patients form a different pattern that is affecting them till date?
So I would say anxiety for sure, which goes back to experiences of helplessness in your early childhood. So children are born very vulnerable, out of control and helpless. We all know that when you see a child, right? That they are vulnerable and helpless. What they need in their formative years are safe, stable, empowered adults to take them through those years. Now, very often this does not happen because the adults who are raising them, of course, have their own challenges. So when a child witnesses things like a lot of fighting in the house, loud noises, marital discord, or if a child is beaten up, a lot of people believe spare the rod and spoil the child. That's actually extremely counterproductive for mental health. Okay, so that leads to a lot of helplessness, anxiety, and it erodes confidence in the child. So any kind of experiences such as this, being beaten up, marital discord, bullying, which can happen outside the home, sexual abuse, all right, these are all patterns that originate in our early childhood. Then also an inability to handle anger, which again goes on to adult anger, rage, stems from your early childhood. So either you've had to have models, that is parents who have been very angry, again, you may have been beaten up, or nobody was there to guide you through these emotions when you experienced them as a child.
Even if I'm not going through any issue, but just I want to get myself hypnotherapized. Because listening to you, it's so interesting. I want to know, like, when I go back in my past, I've done this with you, obviously, but I'm speaking from the audience point of view. Like, I want to know what void is there in my past, or what issue that I'm facing. So even if I'm not feeling anything right now, can I come to you for a...
For sure, because there are two paths to therapy. One is, see, first of all, it's not possible that you've not had any negative experience. Unless you're an enlightened being or you're meditating in a cave and you've cut contact from human civilization. If you're human, there's day and night. We've all had good moments. We've all have moments
Absolutely.
that have broken us, that have weakened us. So, of course, for each and every person, going back into the past and clearing those, it's like a spa. You know how you go to a physical spa? You don't go to get a massage because you're sick. You go because you want to cleanse in and detoxify your body. People do colon cleansing and stomach gut cleanse is such a thing to do now. So this is a mental spa. So you can go for hypnotherapy sessions to release whatever negative backlog is there. But the second and very important thing is the generative power of our mind. So Divyesh, we're only talking about the negative and the trauma, but the human mind is so infinitely powerful. We are glorious creators. Okay, so the second reason for wanting to go for therapy or choosing to go for it is to work on stuff like manifestation, goal setting, creating your vision board, right? Understanding what gives you joy and focusing your energies there. So hypnotherapy sessions are really devised for skill acquisition too. So if you're procrastinating, which is not necessarily trauma, it's just maybe a behavioral pattern, you can use hypnotherapy through suggestions to start writing a new script. Procrastination happens when it's basically avoidance, okay? And it happens when there's some kind of anxiety linked to that task. Okay, so there it is a loop of fear and avoidance. If you want to overcome your procrastination, first of all, identify what is it that you're trying to avoid. Okay, because when you get that elephant in the room, you can tackle it.
So where I wanted to start this podcast, like I've been thinking about it since last 5 years, but every time I thought of starting it, I had some other excuse that was ready, that no, now you just joined your father's business, you should focus on career, what will people think of you, you're coming out as a businessman, people can't be viewing you as interviewing others, like all these excuses. But every 2-3 months, this thought would keep coming back that no, Divyesh, you have to start your podcast. You have to start your podcast.
Right.
So I feel it was the anxiety, it was the...
So there must have been something deeper that was holding you back. Procrastination doesn't just happen actually. Okay, but after a particular years of procrastination, it becomes habitual. So human beings were creatures of habit, but there is a psychodynamic behind it that causes the habit. So if you want to break procrastination, you need to do this at 2 levels. One is understand the anxiety and avoidance loop and then make a commitment to overcome that fear or anxiety. Step 2 is the behavioral part of it. Of course, breaking down the task into a manageable chunk. You know, when you look at the whole mountain, you're going to get scared of climbing it. But when you look at it 2 steps at a time, you can get there. So breaking it down into a manageable chunk and having a clear action plan will help you. But you need to go to the root of the avoidance and tackle it from there.
So let's now move on to behaviors. So what are these different types of behaviors that a human has, or like a particular person can behave in a way? And Is this a part of CBT?
Yes, this is very much a part of CBT. When in the face of a tricky situation or confrontation, we have 4 different ways, broadly, that as human beings we tend to communicate or use to resolve that particular confrontation. So the 4 types are aggressive, submissive, passive aggressive, and the 4th is assertive. So these are behavioral styles that help you resolve conflict. The first 3 are unhealthy and dysfunctional, and the healthy one that we want to aim to cultivate and practice, okay, because behavior is a skill, is assertive communication.
What kind of people are these? Can you just can you describe what an aggressive
Sure.
person is, what a passive aggressive person is, or a passive person is?
So an aggressive person is dominating. It's my way or the highway.
Or even if he's wrong, he will shout at the other person.
Shouting, screaming, so all kind of power tactics where you're abusing, misusing your power and you're trying to dominate that other person using power. When there is a violation of a boundary, okay, is all aggressive behavior.
No, so let's say like if I'm a director in my company and I have a team working under me, and if I'm shouting at them, so that will not always come from a negative way, right? Because they may have not performed a particular task and I dealt with them in that way. So that is not always me trying to violate the boundary.
It is a violation of a boundary of speaking to a human being with dignity and respect. All right. So also deep down, somebody who is shouting and screaming is actually out of control. Isn't it? Like when you're shouting and screaming, you're not in control.
You're causing more harm to yourself.
And you're trying to use fear and your power to control somebody else.
Even though the person who's in power may feel, oh, I'm dominating, I'm the king, I'm superior. But actually, it's just...
It's power dynamics, right? So people, your employees, because they're dependent on you hypothetically for your salary and they have a family to support, will just take that, right? But deep down, it's fostering resentment.
That's right.
Right?
Which will come out-
Eventually, it could lead to lack of joy at work, which will actually be counterproductive and lower the efficiency in the organization.
And the exact opposite behavior of aggressive is being passive or submissive.
Submissive. So submissive people are the ones who are very weak boundaries. They are the ones who are not able to say no. They are not able to have clear communication. They are people pleasers. They are very passive.
Like in any decision, like even if like for a small decision, which restaurant you want to go to, I'm okay with anything.
Yes, people pleasing.
Like I'm okay with anything.
Yes. So it's actually also a lot of duty-bound people. People become passive in the name of duty and what's right and wrong. Like for instance, in Indian families, back in the day especially, the daughter-in-law's duty was to do everything that the mother-in-law told her to do. And a lot of time, there was a lot of abuse of power over there, right? Because basic rights were violated. Absolutely. And in the name of people-pleasing society and duty and not speaking back to elders, there was a lot of... So passive communication is when you're not able to authentically express what you feel. You're swallowing that emotion and you're doing what the other person wants you to do, even though you don't want to do it.
And what kind of feeling does it give to the other side? The other person won't even know that he is going through this.
No, so actually, ironically, a dominating person psychologically will sniff out the victim because they know, okay, idhar chalega. Okay, so it's like a jigsaw puzzle that fits. A bully will only bully you because you are taking it. The minute you're assertive and you speak up and set a boundary, the dominating person knows it will not work here. So a bully feeds off the powerlessness of a submissive person.
So I've got what aggressive is, what passive is. What is this passive aggressive?
So passive aggressive is an indirect communication or rebellion.
Like you're taunting the person.
Taunting, sarcasm, late coming, forgetting. Okay, they are all signs of passive aggressive behavior.
Like you're not speaking up, but you're indirectly...
So say if I meet you at a party, okay, and I have some resentment towards you, which I've not directly expressed, I will pass comments on things that I know will hurt you. Yeah. So if I know your weight is an issue for you, okay, I will say, okay, looks like you put on a lot of weight, Divyesh. It may have, it's no connection with what the hostility between you and me could be linked to some business deal.
Okay.
But I will remove it indirectly by trying to hurt you.
You wouldn't speak up in that business deal, but...
Indirect. And there is a self-sabotage because you may get offended and it'll impact our business deal. So it's affecting my business opportunity. The key is two things. One is it's indirect, and two, there's always a self-sabotage. You know what's very common is when you have a breakup and you go to the bar and get drunk. Okay, so that is passive-aggressive behavior. You're angry at your partner for ditching you. There could be a betrayal, blah, blah, blah. But to get back to the partner, you're going and drowning your woes in alcohol. But it's whose body is getting harmed? Who's going down that black hole?
Absolutely.
You, right? So it's like an indirect aggression or even hooking up, going on a string of mindless affairs to get back to the lover who betrayed you is nothing but passive-aggressive behavior. But getting drunk, hooking up, throwing yourself into work is all passive-aggressive behavior, which is eventually sabotaging you.
So the ideal behavior is assertiveness.
Yes.
And before we open the golden book of assertiveness, I want to talk a bit more about alcohol, smoking, hookups, because in today's times, this is so open. Like on a Friday, Saturday night in Mumbai, almost every bar is full. There is nothing right or wrong. Who are we to decide what right
Absolutely.
or
There's no
wrong is?
judgment.
But from a psychology point of view, this question is coming from a psychology point of view. What are your views on alcohol, smoking, hookups?
So I like to say the golden key that can guide you is balance, okay? Too much of anything generally in life is counterproductive. Also, what's right for you will always make you feel light. So say I'm in a party and I want to just unwind and have a glass or two of wine or whatever my poison is, it's all good. As long as it's coming from a space of just relaxation and joy, all right? When it becomes an issue is when it becomes a crutch, when there is a dependence, when you're using it as an escape or a solution to a problem that you're not able to cope,
To avoid a particular
to
problem.
avoid a particular pain. And that's when it becomes habitual and dependent. Two, when you're consuming it to fulfill a particular image or impression. So if all my friends are drinking and I'm having that alcohol, not because I'm in the mood, I'm not tuning into my energy for that evening and what's right and light. I'm doing it because I need to fit in, otherwise I will be rejected. Okay, and I'm consuming or I'm hooking up when it's not feeling good to me, but I'm doing it because all my friends are doing it.
Lajja, it's now time to open the golden book of assertiveness. What is assertiveness?
So assertiveness, like I told you, is 101 of mental health. It's literally, like I said, akin to hand washing in physical health. Assertiveness is your ability to set clean, clear, firm boundaries. From so many years, the message has been to keep quiet, in the face of authority. For instance, respect your elders, samne mat bolo, you're bad, you're judged if you speak up. That's one facet. Another is power, right? Like an employee and an employer. You feel powerless. So you decide to just stuff it because you're scared that you'll lose your job.
Yes, but the question is how. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, if as an employer, I tell my employee that you have to finish 5 presentations by day after tomorrow, but only 2 can be done. So how will that employee react? Like, how do you be assertive in that? Because I will be mad at him. I'm removing some other frustration, some other grudge on that employee by telling him you have to do it by tomorrow or day after tomorrow. You submit 5 presentations. But
So we have a very technique for it. I'll try to break it down here. It's called the 3-step model. Step 1 is you start with an I statement. I statements are very crucial for assertive communication because normally what we tend to do is say you are overloading me with work.
Okay.
For instance, that's how you would, if you're going back, communicating to your senior, you say you do this, you do that. Now, the minute you're saying you, there's an inherent attack in that communication. Human beings are made to survive. Okay, our survival defense mechanisms are so strong that the minute you attack me, I will protect myself. That's what made us survive from Stone Age man to where we are. So even if I'm wrong, the minute your communication starts with a you, the recipient of that communication is going to protect. So half your battle is lost there. So you want to flip it and you say I. So you say, I understand that you would like all 5 reports by Friday. So in that, you have not attacked your boss, nor have you condoned it. You've just reflected it in a very neutral way, communicating that you understand this. Step 2 is you use the word however instead of but, because but in itself is again very challenging. So you replace the word however, and step 3 is you say what you think and feel. Okay, so it would flow like this. I understand you want all 5 reports by Friday. However, I will be able to manage only 3 realistically. And lastly, you fill it up with what you would like to happen. And I would like guidance on which 3 you would like me to finish first. So it's a very clean, clear boundary.
So like if like without this assertive framework, the employee would probably say that you are asking me to do 5 reports, but I can only do 3.
Correct.
Instead of that, you go
That would be one way, or you would stuff it. The second way of dealing with this is internalizing, going into victim consciousness.
Yes.
Where you're filling yourself up with resentment for your boss.
Correct.
Where you don't have the courage to speak up and set a boundary.
He just sit quiet as it is.
Sit quietly will do it. But from inside is feeling powerless, is feeling weak, is feeling victimized by his boss. A very important tip in assertiveness is the KISS model, KISS, where you keep it short and simple. Okay? Plan in advance. Writing makes a man exact. So if you know that you're going to go in for a tricky communication, whether it's the personal space, whether it's the workspace, I do this till today. You know, it's 15 years or 18 years ago when I learned assertiveness as a part of my master's, and I'm still fine-tuning my skills. So what I do is write down, because when you write, it makes you exact. You know what you're going to communicate. B, do not attack. C, communicate your feelings. And D, come up with a solution, how you want to resolve it. So the aim is win-win.
I feel you beautifully covered the assertiveness model, and especially the 3-step model.
Yeah.
I feel, however, and saying what you want. Are these behavior aspects, like you spoke about passive, passive and assertive?
Right.
Is this a part of CBT? What exactly is CBT?
It's very much a part of CBT. So the full form is cognitive behavior therapy. Cognitive stands for your thought patterns.
Okay.
Behavior is your behavioral skills. What CBT aims to do is it helps you to become first aware of and evaluate your own dysfunctional, distorted thought patterns and areas of behaviors that need strengthening. It's extremely scientific and evidence-based. So depressed people have a particular type of thought pattern that is unique to depression.
Okay.
For instance, they have a negative view of the world, they have a negative view of their own abilities, and they have a negative view of the future. It's known as the cognitive triad of depression, which is common in all depressed people. Step 2 is where you teach the client healthy, alternative, rational thought processes which are more functional and healthy.
Feel free not to answer, but like you said that therapists don't judge their clients, but what if there is a murderer, a rapist, or people who've committed serious, heinous crimes? So how do you deal with such people?
Again, through the lens of development, okay? Because there has to be something that's gone haywire or dysfunctional in that human being's life to make that human being commit that action. So there truly is no judgment. I have worked with a pedophile who had sexually abused children for over a span of 15 years or more maybe. But the fact that he came to me in therapy told me that he was willing to change and transform. And trust me, human beings were capable of transformation. Okay? Also, in this particular case, he himself, it started for him. It was a childhood of neglect. His parents were both working full-time. He was raised by his grandmother, who was very old, and she was physically present, but definitely not very conscious. And his neighbor, 2 boys in his neighborhood had exposed him to porn when he was 7 or 8. And then they started exploring. So that led to a lot of dysfunction in this child, which got transferred into pedophile as he became 18 or 19. So for a therapist, we do not judge. We want to understand that why is this person the reason. The reason, it's very shallow to just label a person. Okay, murderers are also created by society. So you want to go to the level and heal the person from there.
So you are always looking at them from a positive approach, provided they are ready to develop and transform
Of course, the
themselves.
fact that you're coming for therapy tells me that you want to choose a different possibility for your life. And listen, we're dealing with human beings. We're not dealing with machines. It's not a machine that's gone wrong. If you're a human and you're doing this, there has to be an experience. And that's where hypnotherapy, healing, and trauma work comes into being. All right?
Let's now talk about victim consciousness
My favorite topic.
and the drama trauma triangle.
So the drama trauma is a very interesting dynamic. It's prevalent in a lot of areas of our life. It's these three dysfunctional roles that we take up and we get engaged in. There is a villain, there is a victim, and then there's a rescue.
Hero.
Or a hero, yes. So I'm going to give you a very relatable example. Very common to Indian households, especially maybe 10 years ago. Say a newly married daughter-in-law. There is a dominating mother-in-law. Now, for this daughter-in-law, the mother-in-law becomes the villain of her life. She's saying, you can't wear this, you can't go here, you have to wake up at this time. Whatever the rules and regulations are in that house, that the mother-in-law is dominating the daughter-in-law. Now, because she's just married, she will start looking at her husband as her rescue. So when he comes home from work, she will start telling him, your mother did this, your mother did this, your mother did this. Now, this is extremely dysfunctional. Okay, because these roles keep changing.
Here the villain is the mother-in-law, the victim
is the daughter-in-law, and the rescue by default will become the husband in this example. Now, say the husband, after some days of listening to it, feels compelled to speak to his mother. So now he goes and speaks to the mother. Okay? The mother will not like it that shadi ho gayi hai. After the son is married, he started speaking back to me. It's a dysfunctional dynamic. So now who becomes the victim? The mother. Who are the villains? The newly married daughter-in-law and her own son.
Yeah.
Who will be the rescue? Maybe her husband, that's the father-in-law, or her sister, or whichever building auntie she is gossiping or sharing her woes with. Now, this dynamic continues. Because the mother is upset at her son for speaking back, will become little disconnected or show little attitude to her son, whatever emotional drama she is doing. So now, the son, and he's torn apart, right? You cannot choose. Yeah, you can't choose between your heart and your liver, right? So you can't choose between your mother and your wife. It's insane, right? So the son will start feeling bad because one hand the wife is cribbing, other hand the mother is now becoming cold. Okay, so who becomes the victim? Now the son. So what will happen is the villains are his own mother and his wife, and the rescue can be work. So for a lot of men, they start staying back at work longer. Work addiction, even drinking alcohol, you start going to a bar. This is typically how affairs happen. Infidelity is actually almost always the drama triangle. In any stage of a relationship, why does infidelity happen? Because the person with who you're having an affair is becoming your escape or your rescue.
Yes.
There is a void in your relationship. Instead of addressing that void and working through the void, you are escaping by finding a crutch. Okay? So what are rescues? Rescues are affairs. Rescues can be mindless scrolling, screen addiction.
Absolutely.
Staying back longer at work, shopping. Okay? Now, this is extremely dysfunctional, and the most coveted position in the drama trauma is the victim. We all want to be the victim. You know why? Because this is the stance from where you get pity, you get sympathy. You don't need to take onus as to how you're creating that dynamic. All right? And also, there is a lot of powerlessness that brings you to the victim mode. We all have powerlessness in us that comes from our unprocessed childhood experiences. Because when we were children, we were powerless. Okay? And so the only true victims in psychology are children from the age of, say, 0 to 8 or max 10. As you start becoming an adult, you're meant to be empowered. So the daughter-in-law is meant to directly communicate assertively with her mother-in-law and set a boundary.
So in this drama trauma triangle, there should not be any rescuer. It should be only between the victim and the villain.
So the person who keeps the triangle alive is actually the rescuer. Because what's happening is the rescuer, the hero, like you rightly said, has a need to be needed. The villain is actually, ironically, the least significant person in the drama trauma. Okay, it's the least relevant. If the victim decides to empower his or her own self and assertively set boundaries and speak up, and if the rescuer decides that I'm not going to rescue anybody. Now, when I say don't rescue, I'm not saying you leave your loved ones in a lurch. But what you can do is you can inspire somebody. You can support them.
You can give them the tools.
Yes, you can give them the tools. Actually going and rescuing and being the hero means you're keeping the victim dependent on you. So you're fulfilling a need to be needed, and eventually you will become a victim of the person who you've rescued. You will start resenting your wife in that case.
So, Lajja, are you trying to say that this drama trauma triangle can be applied to any situation?
Absolutely. Sometimes it's internal. Say if I'm very fat, my weight is my villain. I'm a victim of my obese body. I'm constantly going into victim consciousness. Why me? Mujhe hi kyun? Why me? Okay, so that's victim mentality. And rescue is what? So I'm a villain of my weight. I will stick to a very strict diet, and suddenly my rescue is I'll go and have 5 vada pav. You know, the cheat, what you call. So it can be internal. It can be happening in the home setting. It can even it happens in the workplace all the time.
Wow, what a food for thought. Like, for all the listeners, whichever situation that you can think of, try applying the drama trauma triangle.
You are never a victim. Please remember that. You are creating your entire life. If you are an adult, you have a choice. The way to get out of the drama triangle is twofold. One is, what can you choose different? And B, assertiveness. And I would also say if you can add that to inner child healing, and actually, so the drama trauma goes back to our early childhood, like I said, when we truly were victims. So if you can go back to those unresolved childhood experiences where you really felt powerless, heal that part of you, and let the present day adult take charge of your personality, you will never step into the victim mode.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, Lajja, we spoke about inner child healing, the past healing through hypnotherapy. We spoke about present behavior through CBT, assertiveness, and the different tools that you spoke about. How do we create a magical future?
All right. So the power is in now, and the power is in the choices you make, for which in the clinic, we have an amazing modality. It's known as access consciousness, which truly helps you to create a life of your dreams by dissolving all your self-limiting thoughts and point of views.
So, what is access consciousness? Like, after I came to you, I realized that this is such a big thing going on, and like we've never heard of it. So, I want to take this opportunity to create more awareness around access consciousness.
So access consciousness has 2 parts to it. One part is known as getting your bars run. When I talk about bars, these are 32 points on your head, which are gently stimulated. Typically, a bar session is you lying down and your practitioner touching these points gently. Each point stands for a particular area of well-being. So we have points for control, creativity. There's the implant band, where all the fear that we are carrying, even through lifetimes, which is stored in us, is cleared when we're running the implant band. Then we have a point for sexuality, we have a point for body, and so on and so forth. So these points carry all your limiting point of views, your belief systems, and your negative emotions.
So, how do you run these bars? What do you mean by running the bars?
So running is basically, it needs a trained practitioner, will be touching you gently. And when you're being touched, you're dissolving those blockages. It's a deep healing modality. The client typically experiences a feeling of deep relaxation, and you go into a state of ease, relaxation, and you experience this feeling of lightness and expansion. So we say human consciousness by itself is infinite. It's unlimited. The energy of consciousness is light. Okay, we have made life very heavy. Why have we made it heavy? Because of all the baggage we've accumulated. So when you're running your bars, all these self-limiting points of views, all the judgments, your fears, and your traumas are literally getting cleared. It's like hitting a delete button on a computer.
At this moment, I want you to share few experiences that your clients have experienced. What magic have your clients faced after running bars?
think actually you'd be the right person to tell me that.
So yeah, so after I ran my bars, and I myself am an access bar practitioner.
Yes.
I got the certificate from you. So after that, I started my Instagram digital diary. Like I was off Instagram for around 4 or 5 years, where I used to not post anything. Because there was a huge transition in my life from a lawyer, then joining my father's business. So there was a lot around me that had changed.
Right.
So when I came to you, I ran my bars. There was so many negative point of views that I had. That what will people say? Like I was under this
You were locked
self-worth
with the
issue,
fear of judgment.
absolutely locked
Yeah.
with the fear of judgment. I ran my bars, and the next day after I became the access bars practitioner. I started my 60-day digital diary.
I still remember that message. I think I
Yes.
was traveling and I
Yes.
was in China and you had messaged me.
Yes. So
Yeah.
and
So-
it is after that that I explored the possibility of this podcast.
Absolutely.
So
what kind of experiences that people have, areas of your life that are stuck? Okay, typically, I mean, I'm just giving the common experiences. There are way more.
But-
they start becoming unstuck. Okay, like you said, I wanted to, you mentioned that previously in the podcast, that I was procrastinating the podcast. I wanted to do it, but I wasn't doing it. So that's a stuck area. When you're running your bars, areas that are stuck, you will find that energy to create it. If a client is clinical is when I feel that now it's beyond just talking and healing. There is a chemical disturbance and this person needs medicine to bring the chemicals back to balance. From 15 years, I've had my psychiatrists who I trust, who I kind of refer clients to. Bars have come into the clinic from the last 2 years. My psychiatric references for depression, suicidal ideation, and anxiety have gone down to, I would say, 0. Like, I wonder that these doctors must be wondering that Lajja has just disappeared from the face of this planet. Because earlier I would be referring clients to them every week or 2 weeks. Now all I say is get your bars run.
So anyone coming with that special condition,
Anxiety, depression, crying a lot, insomnia, feeling heavy.
for which earlier
Grief.
the go-to solution was visit a psychiatrist.
That was not the solution. That was like, if you have 104 fever, I cannot be strengthening your immunity and telling you, Divyesh, drink palak juice and do pranayam. That's what psychologists do. First, I need the fever to go down, na? Then I'll build on your immunity. So there are times when psychiatrists are a very important part of the therapy plan.
So now moving on to stage 2,
Yes.
which is access consciousness. Like bars is a part of access consciousness.
Yes.
And the other are the tools of access.
Yes.
So would you like to break down each tool or just give a summary of the tools?
There are a lot of tools, so I'll try to cover a few.
Yes.
So tools of access consciousness are very simple and easy to use. In fact, the whole modality is about ease. Humans, we're not meant to struggle the way we do. We can actually choose ease. So one very important tool of access consciousness is asking questions. Okay, because when you ask a question,
Asking questions to whom?
so asking questions to the universe. Okay, because there is a higher power. Okay, there is a higher power that breathes life into plants.
So like, for example, I'm stuck at work. I'm stuck with my career option, for example. I don't know what to do next.
Yes, so
So-
you
so
tune
what's the-
into source, you tune into that creative, generative energy, which actually is you too, frankly. Okay, but you are a reflection of that source, right? The fact that you're alive, you're breathing air, your heart is pumping, your stomach is digesting without you doing anything. This action that we're doing actually is so intricate and needs so much coordination. So there is this force which is governing our body too.
So in
Right,
such a situation, you just throw a question to the
You
universe.
connect to that source, which is the universe. Some call it source, some call it God, some call it universe. Somebody can call it an angel. But what I'm saying is that there is this infinite, abundant universe that is extremely intelligent. You and me are a reflection of it. So when you're creating back to your source energy, okay, and you're surrendering that question to the source, okay, you will receive answers in the form of an awareness. So sometimes it's like this awareness. Sometimes it can come in the form of the right person walking into your life saying that, hey, let's do this. Or you could be in an airplane and you're opening a magazine and what you're asking for will just pop up. So the universe is abundant, it wants to give. Okay, and we just have to ask.
So, universe, show up. What will it take for My Turn with Divyesh Doshi podcast to be a success?
Absolutely.
And with joy, ease.
So, access consciousness, another tool, guys, is to choose joy. Okay, because the energy of we are meant to have fun while we're on this planet. We've made life too damn serious. You know, when you're having fun, things just happen easily. There's a lightness. And when you're light, right, you will attract that kind of energy in your life.
So it's about how well you use these tools. You can, as a therapist, equip us, give us the best toolbox that is there out there to create a life of infinite possibilities. But then it is up to the carpenter to use the right tools. What are 3 books that you would suggest to your to people who are actually going through some mental health issue and maybe they've still not made their first step of reaching out to a therapist or professional therapist, but if they want to read about it, what are 3 good books that you would suggest?
So I would say The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. Then you can pick up any book of CBT by Albert Ellis. There are a bunch of books because that gives you a good insight into what cognitive behavior, and there are other CBT handbook for lay people. And if you're looking at exploring access consciousness, then there's Being You by Dr. Dane Here. So these are like covering all the 3 aspects: hypnotherapy, CBT, access consciousness. But there are tons more, tons.
Thank you so much, Lajja, for being so open on the show about all the topics that you discussed. And I'm sure the audience has got more aware of different concepts, and this should be a beginning of their journey, their healing journey, their journey to becoming a more empowered being.
And aware, just conscious.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's my complete pleasure. Thank you.
So that was the first episode of My Turn with Divyesh Doshi. Lajja has really equipped me with the tools, and I'm sure you've learned a lot from this episode.
She has a clinic here in South Mumbai at Hughes Road. It's called Firefly Counseling Center. So if you guys want to fly with Firefly, I'm linking it down in the caption below. So we are going to come up with more such episodes where you will learn much more than the ordinary and different aspects of life. So please hit the bell icon and subscribe, like, share, and comment. That is it from My Turn with Divyesh Doshi.